Today, we sit down with Josiah Morris from Morin Surfboards, good friend of mine and just a really cool, creative guy. We talk about the philosophy of identity and kind of the kind of mixing up of like what we do with who we are. Josiah is a great surfboard shaper, but in his shape shack on the door, he's got a little slogan that says, "Not a shaper." And that's an interesting concept. So we dive into that and much, much more. So enjoy the episode. Thank you so much for listening. And thanks, Josiah, for being on the show. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Kenda Tire. Rad tires. I know a lot of you guys haven't heard about them, maybe from me, because I love talking about them. And they are just faithful sponsors and friends and people that just believe in things like this podcast that help educate people, inspire people, give you something to listen to when you're bored. But Kenda Tire, great people, killer tires. Like the Kenda Cleaver RT, in my humble opinion, is one of the best tires ever made. We've romped thousands and thousands of miles, over 40,000 miles on these tires and put them on tons of trucks, and they're just great. And the new AT2 is a brand new tire for them. A little more mild, but very similar styling. So go check them out if you need tires for your Scout. Not a drawback, but it's a reality. They primarily make them in 17s. So if you're looking to upgrade to a bigger wheel, great tire choice. They do have some 15-inch sizes as well. So yeah, go check out Kenda Tire RTs and Cleaver AT2s. We all know you love cars if you're listening to this podcast. So if you have a cool car or a motorcycle, and I don't mean expensive, they can be super expensive, but even just a cool car like a Chrysler Laser XE Turbo, check out the people at Haggerty. Don't leave insuring a car that you love or a vintage SUV that you love to just a regular old insurance company that's going to try to chisel you down if you ever have problems. Haggerty's a company that believes in the things that we believe in, fights for the things that we fight for, which is driving, access to places, adventure, all that cool stuff. They're just a great company. So if you need insurance, I promise you, man, I get some crazy rates, and I don't get discounts on my own insurance just because they're sponsors, but I insure 4 or 5 different vehicles, from Scouts that I have valued at like $5,000 to $7,000, kind of beaters like the terrible status, all the way to expensive Legend Series trucks. Like, they just give great rates and they understand what we do. So go check out Haggerty Insurance and get a quote. All right, welcome to the New Legend podcast, where it's been a while since I've said this, but where we explore and celebrate vintage 4x4s, family, adventure, culture, and being a man in the 21st century. And speaking of which, I'm here with a good friend of mine, Josiah Morris. Josiah is cool dude, great family. He is he shapes surfboards and does other cool things. So we love talking to kind of people in the crafts and people working with their hands. And so we have a lot of stuff to talk about. So welcome.
Thanks for having me.
And this is probably the coolest location that we've done a podcast. We're in, where are we right now?
Well, we're in Ventura, California. We're sitting inside of a shipping container.
Yes, but this is your shape shack.
Yeah, shape shed shack. Whatever.
It's super cool, man. If you've never been inside of we were just discussing, you were like explaining to me the lighting is interesting, but we'll get to more of that. So first, tell me about your 1969 Chevy pickup. It's a C10 two-wheel drive pickup.
Well, what was my dad's truck? Dad died of cancer 13 years ago, and was a great man. And it was kind of a trip. Both my brothers I have 2 older brothers and a younger brother. Mm-hmm. And both my older brothers, they really care a lot about Fords.
Really?
My dad was kind of non-biased, but he definitely liked GMCs or just General Motors, and had the best luck, I guess. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that was his truck. It has the original 350 still in it. There's probably about 100,000 miles on it.
Yeah. But that was an old truck. Because if your pops passed away, that was what?
13 years ago.
Yeah, so 2007.
Yeah, around there.
So that was an old truck in 2007.
Oh, yeah.
So how long did he have it?
You know what? I don't even know. He didn't get it new. He was the second owner. But I mean, hey man, it's got a little bit of rust. She's far from pretty, but she's straight. Single barrel carb.
Yeah.
Probably gets about 20 miles to the gallon.
That's right.
But yeah, I know he had it for a long time, and we really haven't done much to it. And it is an iconic thing, and it's a cool way for me to be with my dad still.
Yeah.
And anytime we fire it up, me or my wife, we just feel his presence.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Like, and that's we were talking a little bit about this earlier, that because my father passed away, I think 11 years ago. Wow. And I have his Scout. And it's a really strange thing, man. Like, he didn't have it super long. Like, I actually gave it to him probably in 2003, and he had it for about 7 years, but he was a huge influence in my life with just vintage 4x4s. Growing up, we had a 66 Jeep Wagoneer. He always had cool cars. Like, one time
my dad had a Wagoneer. It was like, he loved that thing.
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
And just another, like, one time my dad, for my birthday, I had this, when I was 16 or 17, I had this 1970 Buick Skylark. And I was away with some friends, like on some camping trip. And when I got back from my birthday, he had installed a dual exhaust kit on my car for me. So he was that kind of guy.
That's kind of cool.
It was super cool. But isn't it, it's an interesting thing, man, how a machine, like just some bolts and metal and mostly metal, can be such a strong catalyst to connection and to memory. Mm-hmm. And what's awesome is, like, that it'll be the same for, like, your boys and girls, you know, like your kids will go, dude, this is my dad's truck, and it was his grand. So if we can keep them, if we can preserve them long enough to fight that rust and fight the good battle.
Oh yeah. I've gotten threats from actually one of your former guests, a good friend, Tom Hill. He told me he'd kick my ass if I sold that truck. Mm-hmm. But the kids are going to get it, and hopefully they're kids. And it is, my dad wasn't he would give anything away.
Yeah.
And we weren't really attached to monetary things.
Yep.
But I don't know why. This thing, there is something very sentimental, and I think because they broke the mold after my dad. A lot changed with him from his previous generations, and a lot in his life changed and chose a different path. And I think the legacy starts with him.
Yep.
That my kids, and we'll probably talk more about that, but there's not too many legacies from my grandfathers.
Yes, that's interesting.
You know, and they were just late bloomers of being better men and stuff, but they still have their good stories and attributes. But my dad fought hard, you know, to be a good man. So.
Yeah. But and your mom's still kicking?
Oh yeah. She's still married to my dad. She says they just have a long distance relationship now.
That's cool. Yeah, my daughter Liv, she's 18. She was hanging out with my mom, and just they were she's like, one of my favorite things about spending time with, they call her Babcia. She's Polish, and so
that's cool.
She's like, one thing I love about hanging out with Babcia is she just tells me stories about Grandpa. That's cool.
Yeah, my girls always hound my mom and me bedtime stories, and they just want that that connection, And it is bummer that they're growing up without their, my dad, their grandfather, and they have Krista's dad still, and he's a great man. But they love my dad he was wild. Like, he was always outdoors and just ripping, and we always had the craziest camping stories.
That's awesome.
Breaking down in Mexico or the Sierras or getting chased by bears or just something nutty and
cool.
So we always have some pretty fun stories, and my mom will pull up some that we've never heard. My girls will tell them to me, but it's pretty
neat.
funny. So,
and that's what's cool, man. And that's what's we talk a lot about this with the and the show and just the vintage 4x4s, man. There's something, I know cars are this, but there's something different about, like, special about a truck, like, 'cause it was used for work, and it just, like, they tell just such a neat story, and it's something I'm proud to be a part of, carrying on those memories for people that, like, send us their trucks to restore, but also getting families new families that are new to, they just want some sense of, like, something cool, something memorable, something adventurous. And so, so yeah, that's cool, man. So we should, we'll have to show it. We'll take a pic and post it on Instagram of the 69 C10 right. Long bed.
She's a long bed. Yeah.
Which is a great rig for the next topic we're going to talk about, being a surfboard shaper and, surfing. So tell me a little bit about how, like, your kind of history with surfing, and how in the world do you become to make a living for yourself shaping surfboards? Okay. I'm sure, like, a ton of kids like that grow up surfing go, like, oh, I just want to shape surfboards, but it's like it's not to talk about that path
for sure. I mean, obviously, well, my dad was a surfer. That definitely kept us out of a lot of trouble.
So he would take you guys when you were little. That's cool.
Yeah, so that was a huge thing, and he was a surfer, in the 60s and 70s, and my parents are originally from East LA, and him and my mom, they ran away. I think my mom was 14, he was 15. They're teenage runaways.
Really?
Little hippie surfers. My dad's white, my mom's Mexican, and they ran away to, Bolsa Chica. They ran away. They lived under the pier at Surfrider Beach in Malibu, and just doing the hippie thing, and kind of living it up. And but they were best mates, and since they're 14, 15 years old.
That's crazy.
And so surfing was always around them, and then we grew up around it, and there's 5 of us kids. I'm number 4 in the birth order, and both my 2 older brothers were pretty good surfers here in Ventura County in the 80s and 90s and stuff, and then my sister married a surfboard shaper.
Oh, okay.
And so there was a lot of, that was probably my first introduction of just smelling resin. Mm-hmm. And he was a board builder. He built everything he did everything hand shaped to, start to finish, and would, make boards. And so early on, we would smell it and just be around it. And it was just like, he was like the coolest guy. Mm-hmm. And he was really good friends with my 2 older brothers. And so we were always around these men, and it was like this thing, and this tribe, or whatever you want to call it, cult. It could be a lot of different things, but the sand was always like, that was like our other wilderness. And my dad, one of his cool legacies that he gave us, and it's pretty sweet. He would just tell us, like, he was an arborist, so he, there's not a lot of money in trimming trees, and it's backbreaking work. Yeah. And he literally broke his back a couple times, and ribs, and falling out of trees.
Yeah, it's a wild job, dude. It's
pretty
crazy.
Nuts. And so he would tell us, hey guys, I can't, we're broke, we're poor, we're rich in love and experience, but I can't give you, all this stuff but I can give you two things that'll make you the richest people in the world. And I can give you the mountains and I can give you the ocean. And what he was just saying, he's like, I'll give you the wilderness. And so I will take time and just charge with you guys.
Yeah.
And so that was always like a huge part of us, like where we're like, whoa, we're rich kids. Like, we have the
That's
ocean,
cool,
we
man.
have the Sierras, we have the Sespe.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool. And we never, sure, you'd feel broke when your other kids, your other friends and stuff or had nicer stuff. But so early on, you learned how to fix a surfboard. If you got a ding and, you know, you rolled a fin back then, we glassed our fins in. You had to kind of figure it out, you know, and use some boating supplies and some Bondo, like all kinds of stuff, man. And you just feel super cool when you could fix a ding yourself.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge part of it. And then, I had a soccer coach. We moved from Ojai, the town I was born in, to Oxnard, which is a little bit south of Ventura here in the 90s. We moved there in 1990, I believe. And the story goes, I got in a fight, or I didn't get in a fight. I got beat up and my bike got stolen.
Oh, no.
Like coming from Ojai to Oxnard, and that was the first week we were there. So it was just like, I kind of felt displaced. I think I was about 9 years old. And I was playing soccer at the time, and it was just the beginning of the AYSO season. And my first soccer coach was this now legendary, even back then, legendary surfboard shaper named Malcolm Campbell.
Okay.
And people know him as, you know, the shaper side of the Campbell brothers. Him and his brother Duncan are from Oxnard, born and raised, and started a business that I think they're about to turn 50 years. And
how old are you at this point?
I was 9.
Not okay.
And and we were playing soccer in Oxnard, and back then it was, I mean, it still is heavily Hispanic, and I was always a half-breed kid that didn't know Spanish, and so I'd get picked on for that. But I also, I don't know, it was nuts. So anyways, hardly anyone spoke English on our soccer team.
Yeah.
And luckily my coach did, and his two sons, Ian and Jacob, who are still dear friends. We just, obviously we hit it off, and we had like kind of the best soccer team ever. And I really think a lot of that was just how Malcolm coached, and there was language barriers, but everyone was a part of the game. And man, and the way I'd watch him hold his temper when you got a bunch of pubescent boys not listening, and there was just a lot of things. So again, another really good man in my life who made surfboards. And then so fast forward teen years, I was doing construction, working for my brother's construction
And this
company.
whole time, Josiah, like surfing's a part of your life.
This is part of a lot. Yeah, I'm
like,
paddling out. I
yeah.
do that. And then I'm just kind of finding my way here in Ventura County. It's a very blue collar town, or, you know, county for that matter. And specifically here, everybody just works, and hard work. And the town will spit people out. If there's just weird motives, and we've seen so many people come and go over the years, and they'll think they're going to make it big, but if you don't stand, there's no integrity, you're not a hard worker, and you're just kind of trying to blow the town out. Man, people just have a hard time with that. So I'm doing construction, and then I'm trying everything. You know, I'm in by this time, my early 20s, just got married, still surfing, married a surfer. Thank God. And just not satisfied. I don't know, there was just something I needed to do. And, I don't know, maybe it just kind of called me, and I got a shot with a surfboard builder down here in Ventura. And he gave me the opportunity. He was like, I'll train you how to sand surfboards. And
Okay.
but it's like a full-time gig, dude. And I was like, all right, and this was about, I want to say almost 11 years ago.
Okay.
And he taught me a lot, and how to properly do ding repairs, how to set fins, kind of worked my way up from the bottom in his shop. And then I was there about 2 years, and then I went to work for another guy who's become just a dear friend of ours, Jeff Hull. And again, I just kind of didn't really know much. I'd never at this point really shaped boards. I was just building them, spreading glue, as a lot of the guys call it.
Yep.
And just hustling, and just saying yes to work and trying to figure it out as I go, taking pointers from anyone that would teach. And, but it was long and hard and broke and, smelly and, but at the same time, just so fun. And I think that's something that's never lost. It hasn't lost.
Good.
The romance is still there of, the joke is we don't make money, we make surfboards. But it's a very romantic relationship, and with you're making functional art, and sometimes we do get the chance to make these legacy pieces, that like we were talking about with old trucks, where someone will come and I want to give this board to my kids and to my grandkids. Like, let's make it super, shiny and super tough, and we'll hang it when we're not surfing it, but when we surf it, it'll be super fun. But most of the time we're just trying to let people have fun. So I went from Jeff's to, Jeff taught me a lot about shaping. So he was kind of the first guy that actually hands-on was showing me a lot of just shaping techniques. And my family started to grow and he was affiliated. He was a ghost shaper for this company called Channel Islands, one of the biggest, the best in the biz. And he connected me with those guys, and I got a job there full time, again at the ground floor. And Jeff had taught me so many different things about just running his business, and kind of duplicated himself a little bit with me. And so when he was started to dabble in boats at that time, and I would, handle orders and deal with customers and handle more of the workload of the shop. So when I went to Channel Islands, I was really well prepared, and was able to just be used whenever there was, man, we can't do that because that guy went home sick, or this guy's on vacation. I'm like, oh, I could do that. And just ended up becoming a really useful player.
That's a good word, man, to especially if there's any young people listening that like when you become well-rounded in, because I bet there's like, I've definitely seen it where like even in our I want to build vintage 4x4s, but they don't want to like sweep the floors, and they don't want to package up the parts that are for sale on the internet. They don't want to like sand bodywork. Like, so they want the glamorous parts, but like paying your dues makes you really well-rounded and valuable.
Well, I think like there's a huge piece of honor and respect that has been lost with industry, right? So as industry has boomed, you back up 50 years ago, there was an apprenticeship.
That's right.
You were a journeyman, and it was the men above you were constantly trying to replace themselves with you. And that, to me, I really think had a lot to do with the Industrial Revolution of America, and men and women. And where there wasn't so much of a threat by somebody gunning for your job. Your job was to replace yourself with them, because the people above you were trying to replace themselves with you.
Right.
And there was a lot of unity back then, but unfortunately now there's not. And I think people do think that they can sidestep the long, hard road.
Yeah.
And listen, I've been doing it for 11 years. I could have gotten a medical degree. I could be a doctor right now. but I'm stoked. Like, we're having so much fun. Mm-hmm. And I've gotten to work with the best shapers in the world. A lot of them. There's still so many I can't wait to work with. I have made boards for world champions, men and women. Mm-hmm. Put them under their feet, put fins in them, glassed them or sanded them. Had something to do with it.
Yep.
And part of a team, and I'm still part of the Channel Islands family, even though I quit working there.
You quit to go on to do Morin Surfboards full time.
I did. And so I was there. Yeah. I mean, so we'll back up a little bit, but I was there. I ended up being there about 3 years. Mm-hmm. And really quickly, I think within a few months, they asked me if I wanted a shot at shaping. And so I was like, yeah,
of course.
You want to learn how to shape at Channel Islands. And man, it took me about 6 months of training just to get somewhere on the map where they trusted me close enough, like just with some of their least important boards. And I've been shaping their boards now for about 5 years. Mm-hmm. And I'm still learning. I still get my butt kicked. And there is a level of excellence that those guys have that at the time when you're just taking it on the chin and paying your dues, you can feel sorry for yourself,
right?
And complain to your wife or your friends, or even spread nasty rumors. Or you could just really try to learn and dig through. And man, I'm so thankful for how hard they strive towards excellence. It taught me so much about, and is continuing to teach me about just finishing a job well. And your name's on it. We put our initials now on the boards as ghost shapers.
Oh,
there's that
new?
It is a newer thing. Like before, so there's always like this iconic Christian symbol called the ichthus, and it's like this little Jesus fish. Mm-hmm. People have seen it everywhere. And El Merrick, the founder of Channel Islands, has always signed his boards with that.
Okay.
And so everyone had to put the fish on there. That was kind of like the thing. But just within the past couple of years, they really wanted everyone to take ownership of their work, and you put your name on it, even though it's this guy started this company, and we aren't honoring him as the master shaper. You're in his footsteps, mm-hmm. and you need to put your name on this, because if you're putting your name on something, I mean, it's saying a lot.
Right.
And I'm sure you get that with scouts, and heck, maybe now have everyone in the shop start signing the undercarriage of the trucks. Yeah, and it's in letting people know that it's just not about me, but your name's on this. Like, think about that. Like, what honor and what's that say about you and your story?
That's right.
So
just tap it back a little bit on like the long, hard road. There's two things I'm thinking about. Number one, just the pathway towards mastery in a craft is the long, hard road of repetition. Like, because you think of like I'm going to just shape surfboards, or I'm going to build, it's the same exact thing in our field. Dudes that like, they build one truck and go like, we're the best builders in the country.
Oh yeah.
It's like, how many boards have you touched?
Oh man.
It's probably hard to, it's like,
I mean, I don't, it's one of those things. I've been on this constant battle against my own ego. Surfboard building, and I'm sure being a really good truck builder, your ego can get pumped. I've built this many trucks or surfboards, or I've worked for this guy or that guy or gal. But someone told me, hey man, stop numbering your boards. So I don't even know what serial number I'm at now. As far as hand shaping boards and stuff like that, I don't think I've broken 1,000. Finish shaping boards, I think 1 year at Channel Islands, I did 3,000 boards.
Yeah,
just shaping them. But it's like, I think the whole thing was just like, man, forget about forget about the number. Just do the quality.
Right.
Like, do the quality, and just, if you're signing it and your hands are touching it, be a good craftsman.
But it's both, man. Like they say, even in there's some principle of like 10,000 repetitions, like toward mastery.
It's,
like
Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell.
yeah.
Yeah.
But even whether it is soccer or like
Yeah.
learning the perfect pass shot, like
Yeah.
just you got to put in that time to get to know, to just get that connection of your mind to your hands to the product.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people and that was my point, not about the ego, but about like just the hard work that it takes to get to have a brand that's recognizable and
man.
respected.
If you have a good camera and a good angle and you know how to shoot at the golden hour,
Yes.
I think anyone can make it on Instagram. So I think, unfortunately, there are platforms where you get to sidestep and skip. And I have seen people become Instagram famous, for making surfboards, and they look beautiful, and they have these beautiful glass jobs on them and everything, but the craftsmanship just isn't there, and the shape. So it's like in the car world, it'd just be like, man, everything is just so messed up on the inside.
That's right.
The frame's twisted, there's rust on it, but it's got the sickest rims and tires, and the inside looks rad, and all that stuff. I think it's just fundamentals, and it does take so much time. And I'm not trying to discourage anyone. I think we need more.
Of course.
We need craftsmen, and America needs another industrial revolution. And I'm stoked that people are trying to work more with their hands.
Me too.
And that has been something really cool, I think, about the COVID-19 thing. People are hanging out with their families more. They're tinkering on their old trucks more.
Yep.
People have asked me, hey, can I use your shaping bay, and like, can I take a whirl at it? 100%.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting.
And I think that's really cool, because the more we make stuff and restore stuff here, we're not going to consume as much. We'll probably end up spending more time with our families.
Yep.
So we do need more craftsmen. I think what we don't need more of is people sidestepping and not wanting to learn and kind of go through just the hard learning the basics, and Mr. Miyagi, wax on, wax off, and it's like, man, when am I gonna learn some?
Yeah, that's right.
How to be badass.
That's right.
But like, yeah, I don't know. I at the same time, Instagram's cool. That's my main platform that I run my business through.
Yep.
I'm very grateful for it, and it is a kind of a conundrum, though.
Yep.
So,
and that's why I love this medium of the podcast, is because we can sit and talk about your story, and it goes deeper than just the pictures you see on Instagram, and you get to talk about it. And I think that's pretty special. So that said, talk about, because I've heard you say a number of times, you've equated surfing, your love for surfing, to the word fun. And I think that has to go into the type of boards you shape, the way you approach. Talk about some of your philosophy of surfing, and because there's definitely different. There are some dudes out there that want to become pro surfers. I see this in young people, and they learn to surf to the point system. I wonder. I think they're having fun, but it's not about just I just love being in the water and being with my friends. So there's definitely some, just like any sport or any activity, there's different motivations. But talk a little bit about your motivation.
Well, getting back to Pops, he would say that whoever's having the most fun in the water is winning.
Yeah, that's huge.
Here comes the diesel truck.
That's fun.
So that being said, I think as far as whoever's having the most fun, that's kind of a different way to measure stuff, right? So that could be a kid who got a board at a garage sale for $20 and has been trying and trying and trying, and you're out there and you're frustrated because you're not having a fun session.
That's right.
And this kid gets his first down the line wave where he's gliding and flying, and that kid wins. Like, he's the winner out there.
That's right.
And not the guy who used to be a pro and isn't now, still works in the surf industry, you know, and has all the gear and has the sickest board, but he just can't land a turn. That guy is not having fun.
Right.
And he's all kitted out and whatever, or it could be the mom, you know, who had a kid and it's her first session back.
Oh yeah, the dream.
And she's going after just that one wave. Her core muscles are shot. She just gave life. She's just been touching everyone for the past 6 months and just needs to be alone and remember who she is again. And everything just aligns for her, and she turns and drops in and just glides up and trims and goes down the line. And that mom she's having the most fun and she's winning.
That's great.
And I think like just that approach, and we have a lot of friends, even neighbors, that are pro surfers on the world tour.
Yep.
And it's just so fun to talk to them about fun, and for them, they're like, well, when I win, it's fun. But one of our dear friends, her name's Sage Erickson, and she is just a light to the community and to the world. And I love how much fun she has and how positive she is with the kids around here.
Mm-hmm. That's neat.
And reminding them to, hey, you gotta have fun. Like, it's not about, of course it's fun when you land a maneuver, but it starts with fun. And you back up before my dad, the Hawaiians who invented surfing, this was a form of worship. So they would worship their gods naked on pieces of wood, and all their community was invited out to do this ritual. It was just a hedonistic worship session. And it was all surrounded around playing and having fun. And that was the way that they were honoring their deities and all of that stuff. And I think when you look at surfing as something that it has become very hedonistic, because we're all we can't wait to do it again if you are a surfer, but we do often forget about the fun element and the enjoyment. And so now fast forward to the boards we're doing, most of the time I hide foam that people don't know about. They're like,
explain that, because a lot of people aren't going to know what that means.
People are like, I want this board that's this size, just like this board. And I'm like, all right, cool, yeah, we'll do it. And I'll duplicate that board, and I will shape it in a way where there's considerably a lot more foam than they know in the board. And what that does is gives them more buoyancy out in the water, gives them more paddle power. It's going to help them pop to their feet quicker. You know, if they are trying to do a maneuver, it'll be a little bit more forgiving. But they don't know that. I'm sneaking some foam in there. I do that most of the time, not with some. I have really particular customers too, but
you got to do that with me, man.
So, and then they'll come back and just, oh man, I've never had so much fun on your board.
Yeah, that's great.
And I'm not like, to me that means more like, I have made boards for moms getting back in the water, you know, and I learned how to do that because my wife, you know, and I have gotten kids from their thrift store board or their garage sale board to their first custom shape, or a lot of people. And when I get the report back of, I caught so many waves.
That's right.
I had so much fun, and I'm just all smiles and grins, and I can't wait to go surfing again. That to me, like, I've made boards for, again, world champions where they win the world tour that year, and you're like, they're the world champion. And whoa, like, I oversaw the construction of that board, or put the fins in it, or did something on it. I'm like more stoked on like those smaller wins for me, because it's like, well, I really changed this person's life in a more, they're my neighbor.
Yep.
They're my friends. They're my community. And not that the pro surfers aren't either. And their boards are just as important, obviously, but I think it's just fun in a different way. And I get so happy when I hear that stuff. And it's the same elation, you know, than when I was with like, let's say the Channel Islands team, when, you know, one of their guys won a world tour, something like that. So yeah, fun is a legacy. And my dad's, his legacy, that's one of them, you know, is have fun. And it's hard right now. I've got a 14-year-old that he's trying to be, you know, get his name going, and he doesn't know if he wants to be a pro surfer or a photographer or anything like that. But right now, here's what we all know is he's trying to do these big airs or blow the fins out the back of the wave, and he gets frustrated in sessions. And I mean, we got into it, like, to be real, like last week, and he was just in a sour mood, upset at the waves. His new board wasn't working, and it was really hard, because I had to really, your kids get older, you have to reteach them things. Right. They understand it in a new light. And I told him, I'm like, hey, I'm coming in hard. I'm just giving you a heads up. Like, it's about to get real. Mm-hmm. And we went after it, and I had to remind him of my dad's legacy of fun. And it was the day after a competition that he had just had, and he took 4th place, and one of his best friends got 1st. And I was like, your buddy's having more fun.
Yep.
He's completing his turns, and he's not giving up on stuff just because it doesn't feel perfect. Like, but you're forgetting a piece of who we are and who our family is, who your grandfather would love to see you be, and have fun in the water. And if you're having fun, kid, like, you're gonna win the heat. Yep. I don't care if you get last place. But if you had the most fun, and it's not this, good perspective. A lot of people are like, oh, that's a kind of a, I hate to say it, but like this pussy AYSO, everybody gets a trophy, blah, blah. I think it's actually more, like even harder on that spectrum. And it's humility. Mm-hmm. This world doesn't revolve around us. And I'm not that important. And I think it's scary as a dad, as a father, you know, when you do see your kids, when you see them like wanting something for themselves, and it was so sweet. He hugged me, he kissed me, and he's like, man, Dad, like, you're right. Like, I just need to be more stoked, you know. And he was just frustrated about a lot of stuff, and he's also trying to show the world right now that he's earning everything. And my kids, when you're in the industry, your kids are what we call industry brats. And all the industry dads out there will know what I'm talking about. And my kids have gotten free wetsuits, but they still work them off. Yeah. They'll get free shoes from a company, but they'll make an edit and they'll thank the company. Right. And they'll put some time in and appreciation, and they're learning that nothing is free. Mm-hmm. His new surfboard, my oldest, he sold his old boards, hustled them and sold them, and we made him a new one. He mows lawns. He's paying his way right now to go to the Waco, to the surf park in Texas. And he's paying every cent. And I don't know, I'm proud of that. I am proud that that they have a work ethic, and that they are learning that there is nothing, that there's a value on something. Like, just because you got it for free, somebody paid for that, you know, and honor it and take care of it and treat it well.
Yeah,
and
that's good.
No one's allowed to punch their surfboards in my family.
Right. That's funny. I remember one funny story when I grew up in the East Coast surfing, and I had this, I don't really remember. I think it was like a 1971 Hobie. Like, those old boards had like thick glass, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And my brother, he always had a bad temper. And so he had this 74 Chevy Z28, this Camaro, sweet 4-speed car. Like, dude, we got it for like
4 on the floor.
Yeah, and it was back in the 80s. We got it for like $500, and it was like a sweet car. But anyway, he was working once, and he couldn't get like. One thing my son Owen is learning is how frustrating like working on stuff. I don't know if this is true about surfboards, but doing mechanic work will teach you patience more than probably second to like being a parent. Like you just get so frustrated at trying to get this bolt in or get this bolt out or get this thing lined up. And so my brother he'd get fired up, and he saw my surfboard, and he punched it really hard. And then he realized he thought it was like a boogie board, like soft foam.
Ooh.
He's just like, oh. And then he grabbed a wrench, dude, and he just smacked the quarter panel of his car. And then he felt like junk. It's just like so.
Temper.
man.
Well, and back then, there's still a lot of guys that make surfboards with ISO resin, boat resin.
It's hard.
Oh, man. Like, and they're like, double hot coated and stuff like that. If it was like one of those older, oh man. And then Volan, 8-ounce boat fiberglass. Yeah, he's lucky to break his wrist.
Classic.
Those boards punch back.
One thing I love, dude, is like, so Josiah's been gracious to me in like taking me out surfing to some of the local spots. And one thing I definitely notice about the environment out there is like people are laughing. And they're good. You guys are like, there's good surfers, like, but you're laughing, you're talking, like, like it's a real community experience.
Cool.
And I think I don't see that very often. Like sometimes there's small talk amongst like one or two people, but for like this group of people that all just happen to surf and happen to be in the same spot, that's a really special thing. And I think it reinforces, what you're talking about. And that's what's valuable, dude, is like the relationships, like, doing a maneuver or like hanging 10 for your first time. Those are really fun moments, but what really matters is the relationships with the people.
Oh, 100%.
Because you can get injured and lose your ability to surf or do anything. And I think that's also part of like the bond of a lot of activities. We've talked about that before, but just owning vintage 4x4s, like it enters you into this community. And what we need is people to be welcoming.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you remember the days you were saying about your dad with like, oh, that's a Ford guy, I hate that guy. Or that's a Chevy guy. Or this guy's a longboarder, that's he's riding a short
or a
board.
Beginner or someone on a soft top or like whatever it could be. Yeah.
But to really, that's hard for us all to do. I have to do it. Like to be like open, like, dude, these people just love, like they love going down the line as much as I do.
Yeah.
Like, and sure they may be whatever, but like still to have empathy for people and be positive. And
I think I totally agree. And it is hard, man. A lot of people do get frustrated with the surf culture, the localized community of people thinking they own the ocean and how could they, and there's a huge influx right now, more than I would say ever. I haven't seen numbers yet, but I would say this year, more people have learned to surf than ever because of COVID-19.
Yeah.
Business has been booming. We can't keep boards on the shelves. We can't get boards built. It is
because we're doing podcasts, man.
No, this is great. This is cool because I mean, as people are coming into the tribe and into the industry and starting to consume on the industry and be a backbone, essentially, like it's consumer driven. They do need to know. They do need to know story. They do need to know how the tribe works.
Yep.
And a lot of people hate that word. I kind of do too. It's kind of inclusive, right?
Yeah.
And surfing is so tribal. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's crazy. You got guys beating their chest thinking they own the ocean. It's pretty funny. And I'm guilty of that. And I grew up in a very localized surfing community. And sometimes that little feather pops up, especially if I see people getting hurt. And I always try to start with education and just asking people, hey, where are you guys from? Mm-hmm. Not to shame them if they're not from around here, or just to get a feel, make them feel welcome a little bit, and just let them know, like, hey, maybe like don't do that. You just almost really hurt somebody.
Yeah.
And surfing yesterday, like we had a friend get his tooth knocked out, or a tooth broken in half, and another one chipped. And he was avoiding a collusion with a beginner surfer, and if a board can knock a tooth out,
dude, it's dangerous.
It could do some damage. And the reality is, like, I'm kind of surprised sometimes how many parents just do let their kids just go out not knowing anything.
Especially when it's like...
And the waves were kind of pumping right now. Like, it's pretty good. It's one of the better swells we've had all year. And there is so many little kids out there that had never been in surf that size. And with hard boards, essentially these, some pretty big weapons. So there does need to be a level of enforcement. And like it or not, you need tribe mentality for that, because there needs to be people that are they're gonna educate, and maybe I'm not like the tribe warrior. Maybe I'm like more of the medicine man, and create the, I'm the witch doctor or something. A shaman. But there needs to be, I'm the holy man. I don't want to be the witch doctor.
Yeah, that's right.
But there does need to be like education first.
That's good.
And
that's a really good point.
If people are safe, people can have fun. And that's kind of the way that so when I see people not being safe, and then if they think that they have it figured out and that I'm being bossy pants, then we do have an altercation where it's like, hey, actually, no, you don't get to do that.
Right.
Because you're jeopardizing other people's safety. And I'm not okay with that.
And that's actually...
like, my kids are out here. My wife's out here.
Right.
And man or woman, I will be firm. I'm not going to be a jerk. I'm not going to be just come off crazy at first, but I'm going to test the waters. And you'd be surprised how many people think they have it figured out, and then they've heard the stories of the local guys, or they've heard the stories of people being bossy in the water, and then they want to stand up and it's going to get defensive. And so I always come in soft. Hey man, like, well, how long you been surfing? Where you been surfing? What kind of board are you riding?
Yeah, that's good.
Kind of go from there. And then,
but that's an important point, because like I was introduced to surfing by a mentor. Like this dude's about 15 years older than us. He moved to Connecticut from the West Coast. He started taking us surfing, and like he taught us like here's like etiquette. The lineup etiquette. Here's how you stay safe. But a lot and you had your dad, and your kids have you.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of dudes, little kids and young and new people that just get dropped off at the beach, and they don't dig into the etiquette. Because I was talking to my son about like just how you get snaked, and like, like or if you're paddling for a right, you look over your left shoulder. If there's someone on the wave, back off. Like, just let them go.
Yeah, it's a tough thing to remember too. Like, even with beginners, that you get tunnel vision. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get the wave. Yeah, you forget to look over your shoulder, and that's why I think it's really important that people do know those things. And there is a lot of etiquette moving into this area, where in other breaks, it is okay if you do drop in on another person,
right? Because they've become the place where
people just kind of forget
party waves.
It's just party wave central, and it's just like people just have given up on that and like trying to enforce it, and so they just kind of let it go. Well, what happens is that has been spreading up here in the past few years. So it's like you have some people that are okay with it and think it's okay, and then you have a lot of people that have been born and raised surfing here, and they're like, whoa, automatically they're like, that person's not from here.
Right.
And then there's immediately something that triggers this protective and this bitterness and salty thing. And I've experienced it, and I've been stupid, where I'm like, man, it'd just be so much better if all these idiots weren't,
surf where you live.
Yeah. Go back, like all that stuff. But I think the reality is, and I've talked to the older guys who told me this, they're like, they're going to come anyways.
Right.
So you need to really change your approach. You need to educate people and not join them.
Right.
but but be nice and make a precedent of, hey, that may be okay in Malibu, or that may be okay, somewhere else. That's not okay here.
But that's actually a caring thing to do. And it's not, because it's not dissimilar in the off-road world, because it's so like, what's interesting about surfing is the barrier to entry is so low. You could go to Goodwill and buy a board for $20, and then that person has just as much access as you do, who've lived your whole life on the water. Yeah. Trucks and off-roading, and I love that, right?
A lot more commitment.
It's a lot. It is, but it is, and you could also, because if you have a decent job,
true,
you go buy a brand new Rubicon that's way more capable than most noobs should have access to, and you go to like the hardest trails,
Moab,
and people get hurt, and it's like
roll their rig, yeah.
I feel like, and there are people like yourself that go, hey, I want these. It's good for everyone, for people to have access to these things and experience the joy of this lifestyle.
Yeah,
but you gotta learn, man. You gotta don't start here, start over here. Like, just get off road, do some camping. Don't just go for and the hard thing is with some people, it's like the Instagram thing. They want to show that, like, I clicked. And in the overlanding off-road world, this new thing, I kind of, like, just for the record, if you have these patches, no offense, I don't hate you, but it's like these merit badges of, like, I did this trail and this trail and this trail and this, and then you put them on your headliner or on the outside of your truck saying, like, I went to Moab and I did Hell's Revenge. And so people will go and just like, it's like a send fest. Like, it's probably similar in rock climbing and other sports, but it'd be like, I came to Ventura and I surfed, I surfed Soli and I surfed Rincon and I hit them all, dude, in one day, and I'm like the man.
Wow.
Now. And it's not even, that's probably a bad view of that, but
I don't know.
It's just the click, like, I'm just the accomplishments of, like, I dominated these things.
Again, getting back to the ego thing, I'm not in the outdoor industry yet. I don't have a scout going yet.
But there's rumor.
We're getting there. There's rumors. We've been driving your guys' scout, which has been so fun, and kind of pumping you guys up in our community. And it's been just a hoot. But anyways, I actually, coming into that, into that culture, I will tell everyone that does listen to your podcast, I think that's lame. I think there is a lot of ego there. And I think the best trinkets you can take away from an experience, from a really tough climb or a camp or a drive out are when you're shoulder to shoulder digging somebody out, winching somebody out of a situation, and the teamwork, the camaraderie. Man, your patch doesn't say any of that.
Right.
And I think that's where a lot of the stuff, maybe just growing up in the surfing community, where, when people name drop people, I surfed that wave, or we're going here, and we went to Kelly's wave pool, or like all that stuff. They're still, man, let's check our egos. And I think part of this podcast is being masculine in the 21st century and maybe rewriting some stuff, and let's check our egos out the door. And I've got an ego. Like, I'm a narcissist. You're a narcissist. We all are. We're all opportunists, but we got to check ourselves. And I would just, maybe edit it out, dude, if you don't like this, but tell those guys, like, dude, ditch your patches, throw them in your campfire,
throw on your shirt,
throw your shirt away.
Yeah.
I don't care. I think, like, have some moments with your friends and your family. And those bedtime stories, like, that your kids, your grandkids are going to tell about that. Man, one time we got so stuck. There was no way. And he took an old hammer, some duct tape, and some baling wire, and he got us out of that mess. And, dude, your patch doesn't say that. But that story, dude, that's what you want. Like, that's what you want. And I think, like, same thing with surfing. And there's so many images burned in my head of seeing my wife catch her first wave after a baby, or your firstborn ripping down the line. and you're just like, for the first time, and their face and how the temperature of the water that day, the smell, what season it was, man, I can't, that's burned. Like it's burned
good. Yeah,
here.
that's special.
And it's like, I can't make a patch or a shirt or even an Instagram post that would come anywhere near to that moment.
That's right.
And that experience. And yeah, let's put our patches and our phones down and just live a little. Like,
yep. And that's what's neat about just doing stuff. And I think that's the richest part of owning a vintage 4x4 is it's like we say it makes the mundane, like when you drive the Red Scout or like your C10,
yeah,
it's like there's just like even putting the key in the ignition and just like going like, this is rad.
Oh,
like I'm just going to get
sweet.
gas, like,
Yeah.
but I don't, it's not, or go get bread.
I smell my dad. I still smell him in there.
Yeah.
Like there's a smell of like his work gear, actually right up there, like in that yellow bag.
Yeah.
It's his old climbing harness.
Oh, cool, man.
Chaps and that truck still smells like if you've worked in the outdoors or you've been
Like
in the
chainsaw oil.
that chainsaw oil
Yeah.
and that buckskin smell.
Yeah.
Like y'all know what I'm talking about, but I still smell my pops in there, and somehow this hint of a rotten banana, because his old igloo cooler like always just had that stench of a banana he forgot to eat.
Yeah.
But I still smell pops in there,
Yeah, that's
and I crank that thing up, and yeah, no, he's there, and it reminds me to step into those legacies and to live,
That's
and
right.
to live well and love hard and live well and to be a good man. I made him a promise on my wedding day. I got married when I was 20 years old. Mm-hmm. And he made me make him a promise. And the promise was, and I'm just preface, I know how expensive somewhat it was for him to ask for this promise. Mm-hmm. And so he made me promise to be a better husband to my wife than he was to my mom. And then he made me promise to be a better father to my children than he was to me. And I was like, dude, it wrecks me now just to think about that. But every time I crank that truck over, I think of that promise. And it really checks me, and it checks my ego. And it checks my heart, it checks my motives, and it reminds me of a lot of things, like usually where I'm blowing it, and I have to do some hard heart work, and on that tweed seat.
That's right.
And there's something I think too, like just about old vintage 4x4s, trucks and rigs. When you're going down the road, you're moving forward. And the hardest conversations I've had in my marriage with my wife and owning some ego and or with one of my kids, we've always been shoulder to shoulder in that truck or in our family car. And maybe it's a philosophy, but I really believe that those conversations happen best when two people are going in the same direction and they're shoulder to shoulder.
I like that.
I've told my wife the hardest things and have had to fall on the sword so many times in things that I've done against her or our marriage, own bad attitudes with my kids, and blowing up or doing whatever, and just humbling myself. And I've found it's way easier when you're driving in a truck. You both are facing the same direction, and
I've never
and you're
thought of
not
it as-
squared off, because
Right.
right now we're in an interview, or that's what we're doing. We're in a podcast interview or like whatever, but you and I are squared off. And I think to the men out there, next time you got to have a hard conversation with a buddy or your wife or your friend, maybe just try sitting next to him and maybe drive, or sit on a bench, or go on a walk. I like the idea that we're both moving forward.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So
man.
there's
That's a great
something that
picture.
happens. There's something that happens in our souls when we're just cruising but yeah, I would encourage just a little life hack for me.
I like that.
I've found it just so much more successful than squaring off shoulder to shoulder. That's what we do when we're gonna fight too. You know what I mean?
You and I are probably going to do after.
We're gonna do some wrestling in the dirt out here. Some Indian leg wrestling. But we don't.
No, that's neat.
And I think when you're trying to have a hard conversation with somebody, it's especially as dudes. Well, it's like we take it as a challenge.
Yeah.
It's like, like you're facing off with me. But anyways, like
That's
take
neat.
it for what it's worth. But
And like in a vintage 4x4, it's like they typically don't have great stereos, and they're kind of noisy anyway.
you
So
can't
it's like,
hear anything.
so you just like,
And you get to yell at each other.
yeah,
but
exactly.
it's totally fine.
Right. That's good, man.
Yeah. But,
And I do. Let's just wrap up on one more thing. So on the door right there, if you're watching this on YouTube, right there behind us into the shaping room, the domicile of craft is on the wall. It's on the door. It says "not a shaper." So, because I've tried to be careful to go like, you're a surfboard shaper. It's like you shape surfboards, but what do you mean by not a shaper? Let's just end on that note.
well,
If you could do it, I know it's probably a lot.
I can do it
there's a lot
quick.
to it. Yeah.
It's an identity reminder for me. I've worked really hard. I'm nowhere near. I've been blessed to work for some of the best surfboard companies and surfboard manufacturers in the world. There's a piece of my heart, if I'm being real, that would really like to attach itself to that and to let everyone know what I've accomplished and to toot my horn. And every day when I go in there, I'm working for other people. I'm serving other people. This is something I've learned from a mentor and really good friend of mine, Britt Merrick, and boss, kind of teacher. He likes to use the word servant. He's a great servant. He loves serving surfers. And that's kind of his philosophy and take on it. For me, it's I started at Channel Islands writing it in the foam. When you're shaping surfboards, there's foam that just collects on the wall. And I would just write it in there. So I'd always write it in that shaping room was the first one that I did it in. And I would see it every morning when I'd walk in. And it would remind me that don't lead with this. When people ask you what you do, this is not my identity. So people, even like maybe on the introduction on the podcast, will say like surfboard shaper, like, when people, it's kind of funny. My new one is when people ask me what I do for a living, I just tell them I make toys. I'm a toy maker.
Yeah.
And I've found this is something pretty cool. When people are asking you what you do for a living, they're usually dying to tell you what they do for a living. And so I just I'll just throw a quick comment out and I just turn it really big, right back the conversation back on them. Like, well, what do you do? Like I want to be more interested in you. And, you can very easily become wrapped up in what you do. And this is the thing with dudes, unfortunately, is that's one of the first questions you ask men,
Right.
And it's like, what would you ask them otherwise? Like we've just been trained, like,
Right.
whoa, what do you do? Like, oh, I mean, I don't know. Like maybe for you, what would you say? Like, I'm a mechanic, like, or I don't know. I build toys.
Yeah.
You're a toy builder too.
Right.
But I think for me, it's just a reminder that I have to check myself every morning and not to wrap up my identity in that. I have a way stronger core and identity other than being a toy builder.
That's right.
And it's very faith-based. I have a rabbi. I'm not Jewish, even though I have a Jewish name, but you know, I have a lot of core beliefs that are wrapped around a small, dark-skinned, middle-aged man that walked around in Israel 2,000 years ago, who was all about free healthcare and hung out with hookers and fishermen. I really like that guy a lot and follow that. And there's an identity thing that practice that he really teaches a lot, just about who we are and who we are as humans, our core values. And there's been times in my life where I haven't felt enough love, like from God, from other people, or even for myself, and have wrestled dark demons, and have always come back to those core beliefs with Jesus, we'll say, and you can't even say his name without smiling. That has brought me out of those places. And a reminder of before, this is some of his words, before the foundations of the earth were formed, which, you know, millions, billions, I don't know. I feel like the number changes every year. You know, some believe like 4,000 years, whatever, wherever you're at on that. But before all this thing was, you know, banged together, however you think, that there was somebody out there and your name was written into existence, and that you mean something. And, but not, I know that I mean something and that there's value on my life, but I think what really trips me out, getting back to that quote of not a shaper, is every other person on this planet means something.
That's right.
To him or to it, you know, or to who God is. And there's a meaning on everyone's life. And it's not about me. It's not about me. And so I gotta just constantly, maybe I'm the worst one in the room and I have the biggest ego that just constantly needs to be checked. But I have to look at that thing every morning.
I think that's a good exercise, man. Even in the context of, like, think about what we do, like, and how important our family is, or being a husband or a dad. But we often, that's the lead up. Like, what do you do?
Totally.
I'm a plumber, or I'm a lawyer, or I'm this.
Yeah.
Well, you're a lot more than just that.
How do
we?
we?
No. People know that.
Yeah.
But it's just, we as a culture, we got to figure out a way to dig into people's life and story more than just.
Yeah. And getting back to like old stuff, it's like people's names, their last names were usually their trade. So people didn't even have to ask, like, your last name was Shoemaker. It's like pretty obvious, like what you do for a living.
Right.
Like, hey, Bob Shoemaker, what do you do? Like, yeah, it'd be redundant.
Yeah.
And then, but oftentimes there was a legacy in family where people just knew what that family was all about.
Right.
And they didn't need to ask what you do. Or it's like, oh, I've heard of your family.
That's right.
And I think that's what's been pretty cool about just trying to be more active in our community. People are like, oh, whoa, like, oh, you're the Morrises. Like, whoa, no, we've heard about you guys. Like, you guys make surfboards and stuff. And yeah, like, cool. And then it's like, anyways, like moving right along, like, you just really get to some really fun conversations, right. I think a lot quicker, and just avoid the niceties and whatever this weird protocol that we've created. But yeah, man, I don't know. I think you're a toy maker. You're a brilliant toy maker. Yeah. I'm a toy maker. And I think it's kind of fun. And this is the toy maker talk I learned from Malcolm, my soccer coach I talked about earlier. And it's a constant reminder. And Malcolm is a philosopher. He is deep in thought. And the surfers that'll listen to this podcast know how cosmic his brain works. And but he's taught me that.
That's
he's
cool.
Like, don't take yourself so seriously. You're a toy maker.
That's right.
And like, you know, it's fun if I'm being really cheeky, and maybe I'm going to push the envelope a little bit here, but I'll tell people when they ask me what I do for a living, oh, I make adult toys. and people like automatically think like, oh, okay, he's sex toys or something.
Right.
And it just kind of gets it light.
Right.
And then it's like, and then it reminds me, oh yeah, like I'm not that big of a deal.
Right.
I make toys for
Right.
people.
Right.
And let's not take it so seriously.
Yeah. But I am grateful for people like you, people that are in the crafts, because they often, like you said, like I'll just end on this note of serving other people. Like when we build vintage 4x4s, sure, it's a business and we're providing for our team and their families, and we get to exercise something that we're proud of, skills that we've learned. But ultimately, we're serving families, man, and people, just to enable them to have adventure. Like when you build a surfboard, you're enabling someone to connect with the ocean in a way that's like, you can do it if you're just swimming, but like when you go down there's a reason why surfing's growing, because it's like it's a magical feeling to go down, just be floating on.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like flying and
Yeah.
gliding, and it is pretty
like
cool.
so, and it's all those things. Or you manufacture tents that allow people to go out and explore and experience nature. So those things are important. So I appreciate what you do.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Keep
man.
doing it. Keep raising a good family, and keep teaching your kids about the not to take surfing too seriously.
It's
I do
tough,
for mine,
and
too.
I mean, yeah, and we're trying to, as we keep going. I think the biggest thing for us is just trying to remind ourselves that what happens in the four walls of our home, in the intimacy of our family, is what is going to make anything we do successful.
That's right. I love that.
And everything is evolving from what happens in that house. And even more so, I think everything that happens, even that's going to happen well in that house, is going to happen between me and my wife, and for us to have a good marriage. And I would just encourage every guy out there, fight your ego, fight yourself, and do some hard work.
Yep.
And get that relationship right. And watch what it does to your parenting.
That's
and
right.
then when your parenting starts to thrive, watch what it's going to do to your business.
That's
and
right.
I just feel like too many of us have gone backwards.
Yeah.
We've
Definitely.
gone backwards. We're like, well, if I just get that promotion, then my marriage will just get fixed, or my kids will respect me, or
Yeah, I
I
think-
can buy them more stuff. And
Or just for dudes, I think sometimes guys struggle to, myself included, we struggle to communicate well, and to feel valued, and so the value gets connected with provision, and a lot of dads see that as their primary driving principles to provide for their family, and they could be absent in the little things of, like, I think what your dad, I love that perspective. I think that's a good perspective to go. Provision is one thing, man, and I get that drive to take care of things and protect your family, but you got to, provision's more than just financial. Let's just put it like that.
oh, totally. It's emotional. It's spiritual. There's so many things.
And a lot of it just comes down to just hanging out and taking time with your kids. And
Or
your
what
wife.
we do. It's recreational. Recreational provision. I mean,
Yeah, I like that.
It's kind of a cool way to put it, but yeah, we should be facilitating. And we talked about that. Like the toys you build and then the toys I build, they're facilitating good times.
Good times, and they do go really well together. So on that note, Josiah, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
You guys, thanks for listening.
Heck yeah.
That was a great conversation, man.
Thanks. Yeah.
Take
Thanks
care,
for having us.
everybody.